Good evening and welcome to Sportitics, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Stephen, the independent thinker, my cousin Chris. Oh, sorry, cousin Chris. It's got a little shadow on him. Cousin Jen, and Keith, the constitutional conservative. The FBI searched President Biden's Rehoboth Beach, Delaware home and did not find any classified documents. The Eagles are the NFC playoff champions on their way to the Super Bowl to face Kansas City and Phoenix, Arizona. Former President Trump joins President Biden, President Obama in condemning the horrible beating of Tyree Nichols. NASCAR's Burton Smith take win in racing Mustang GT4 and claims victory in a 4-hour Michelin Pilot Challenge season opener at Daytona. The National Archives is asking all former presidents and vice presidents to check for classified and presidential documents in their possession. Tom Brady retires for good. Do you believe him? And with the new rise of coronavirus variants, the FDA halts authorization of the drug Evusheld. Djokovic wins 2023 Australian Open men's single final. Jenny's here to talk about it. I don't know how he got into Australia. The Obama-Biden White House agreed to negotiate with Republicans on the debt ceiling, even though interest rates were raised again today. Who is Congressman George Santos from New York? I don't know. We'll talk about who you think he is, and we'll talk about who he actually is. Stephen, let's talk about NASCAR. We're back in season. What does that mean? And what was that race in Daytona Beach?
This race in Daytona Beach was a series that they're doing. It takes two drivers to do it because it goes over a certain amount of time. It could be 4 hours, 5 hours, and the guys will come in for a pit stop, and another guy will jump in. It's really an interesting concept. And this time, Jeff Burton and a guy named Zane Smith, who drives full time in the truck series, they got together and won this thing. And they were driving a Mustang, and it was obviously the best car, and it generally is in most races. But I don't know much about Zane Smith, but Harrison Burton, it comes from almost racing royalty, because he's the son of Jeff Burton, who was a legendary driver a couple decades ago, and his brother is Ward Burton, and you wouldn't even know they were brothers if you heard them talk. And they take Jeff Burton, listen to him talk, and listen to Ward Burton. They're like two totally different people. Jeff Burton sounds like he's from the city, and Ward Burton sounds like he's from the deepest part of the country. It's hilarious to hear Ward Burton talk. And Jeb Burton is Harrison Burton's cousin. So this is all in the family. And the reason they won, I believe most of the reason is because Harrison Burton is such a great driver, and Zane Smith is up and coming. And these two guys, remember Harrison Burton and Zane Smith, because they will be full-time NASCAR drivers no matter what happens from here on out, because they are capable and they are really good at what they do. And they come from lineage that they were born into this. They were born with a steering wheel in their hands. They were born with a gas pedal on their foot. So I'm not surprised that they did well.
The poor mother. What must she have gone through?
Well, this is what happens. I didn't think about that point there, Todd, but that is something to ponder.
So, to people like Todd who doesn't understand or know about NASCAR, What did you just say? I don't even know what he doesn't know what you're talking
He
about.
was
Don't put
saying
me
that
in it.
because
You
they
don't
were
know what
born
he's
with the
talking.
steering wheel in their hand and a gas pedal on their foot, it must have been rough on the mother. It was a pretty funny joke.
Oh,
He'll
okay.
be
Yeah.
using that next week.
Yeah,
All right.
it was
Thank
pretty
you.
funny. Yeah, they were just born into this. They were made to do this, and this is what they're going to do forever. So, and their kids will do it as well.
Okay. So that's like, all right, I'm not even gonna make that joke. All right, thank you. Let's move
Come on,
on.
Stacey.
That's right. Let's move on. Jenny, the
Yeah.
Australian Open. How did Djokovic get into Australia not being vaccinated?
You know what? I didn't really look into that at all. I just, I guess,
And then he won the Australian Open, right?
yeah, he won. I guess they just came to some kind of arrangement. Maybe he was under kind of some kind of stricter quarantine protocol or something like that. So I didn't really look into that. But yeah, so he did win. He was expected to win. I definitely expected him to win from the outset. And man, this guy just, people have strong feelings for him, one way or the other, but he's definitely going to be, if not the greatest, one of the greatest of all time. It's him, Nadal, Federer. Again, Nadal's my favorite player, just because his style and, as a person. But you just can't take anything away from Djokovic. He's got his sort of mind body in sync. His mind and body. He got 2 out of 5 break points won. Doesn't sound like much, but we again dealing with just increments in the game of tennis. So Stefanos, this is his this is his second final. I believe he was in the French Open. Also lost to Djokovic. So there might be a mental aspect maybe going forward with him playing Djokovic. So. But that's just, again, a testament to Novak. So Stefanos is very good. He's definitely going to win a Grand Slam. He's almost there. So that's the men's side. So the women's side, Arina Sabalenka won. This is her first Grand Slam title. She was, she's been kind of touted.
Wait. Before you go
She's
to
a
the
Russian, isn't she?
Yeah,
wait,
she's
before
Russian.
you go to that, two things. One, didn't Garagos get didn't he get a operation or something? And in Instagram or something, he put up his middle finger from his bed after surgery.
So I'm sorry, who is this? This is somebody who was
Garagos.
Oh, Kyrgios, Nick Kyrgios.
Yes, Nick Kyrgios.
Who I can't stand him. Oh, I can't stand him. Him and Djokovic, can't stand him. It's about 3 or 4 of them. I can't stand. They're just tacky, wrong, just wrong.
But
Put you in mind of
Kyrgios,
Steven.
didn't he have Kyrgios had some sort of surgery, right? Because he was in his bed and on Instagram, and he put up his middle finger, like, I made it through surgery, I'm good, and he put up his middle finger, which
right.
I'm not doing.
I'm not sure, but I think he had reassignment surgery.
Oh, that's what did Keith have that?
No, I thought that was Steven.
I did. I had it. It's called an addictomy.
All right. Well, all right. I'm going to kind of steer this car back to tennis.
Lord have mercy.
I didn't see that Instagram post, but if he did that, I think I don't know if he's might be saying to other players like, I'm down, but
That's
I'm not out. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what his message was there, but I didn't see it. Maybe I'll look at it. So again, for the women's side, a Russian player. Yeah, you're right, Todd. A Russian player, Arina Sabalenka. She won. She beat Elena Rybakina, who's the current Wimbledon champion. So these two folks are, just really coming into their own. And so these are kind of new people on the scene and relatively new.
And we're still bored.
Yeah, but Arina Sabalenka, she's maybe she's got, if not, maybe the most powerful player, one of the top 3 most powerful players on the women's side. And she's had some control issues with her serve. And that kind of plagued her last year, but she just turned it around, got herself in gear, worked on her serve, and just worked her way right into a Grand Slam final. So Elena Rybakina, this was a close match. Again, 3 sets, just like the men's game, and very close. Sabalenka came back from 1 set down and won the next 2 sets. But it was kind of a pleasure to watch because these are 2 power players just hitting the ball, short points.
Mhm.
That's one thing about the women's game. Usually it's, longer points because they don't have the power that the men's game do. But, this was like watching again, the points were very quick. Serves were super hard. And so it was just interesting to watch. So, going forward, we'll see how consistent these players are. On the women's side, I think there's like a maybe not, since Serena's gone, Venus, not really playing. There hasn't been that one dominant player since Serena.
Well, there's Coco, of course.
Yeah, Coco Gauff. But I'm just talking
And-
about like who's going to be, on the men's side. Again, we had Djokovic, we had Nadal, we had Federer winning pretty much 80% of the Grand Slams for, the last 10, 15, 20 years. So,
that's right. But then Andy Murray came back, and I thought he was going to.
He's 35. Sometimes he forgets he's 35 and plays, off the chain. He plays ridiculous. Love watching him. But I don't know how long we're gonna have Andy as far as playing the game or playing at the level he used to play. But on the women's side, it was just Serena. It was Serena who's winning all the tournaments and who's the dominant player, and a couple other players too who were
like Asian and Black.
Osaka. Osaka. Yeah, she's right. She's not going to be in there for a while, but just besides Serena, Naomi Osaka.
Okay, we're bored and we want to move on
I'm
to
about to
some
say,
other
what
players.
is going on? Todd and Jenny are talking about tennis, and none of us.
I know. So
myself
again,
included, I do not know who these players are.
The Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. When are we going to talk about the Eagles going to the Super Bowl?
I was getting ready to end. I was getting ready to end just saying
Don't
that,
get intimidated
we'll
by these ghetto
queens. Trust me,
queens.
I'm not.
No, I'm talking to Jenny. I said for Jenny
clearly,
not
Todd,
to be intimidated by you ghetto queens.
So we're going to see what's going to happen.
About tennis, and so go on, Jenny. I think we were on Osaka.
We don't talk tennis until after like spring sometimes. Isn't like Wimbledon the beginning of the season or something like that? It's like Wimbledon, US Open.
No, ma'am.
I mean, as long as football is going on, we should not be talking about tennis.
Right. You guys drive Dr. Jenny away now.
We're not.
Everybody should be flushing. All of us should be flushing the toilet. We should all be flushing the toilet.
Don't keep turning, Keith. Keep your face in the screen.
That's all right. It's good. That brings excitement to the show.
No,
so
like tennis.
Yeah, Rogaine. How's that Rogaine working for you, Keith? You got that bird's nest going? Yeah,
that's terrible. Go ahead, Jenny. Let's finish this out because
they are a sponsor now.
Wait,
yes.
Jim,
you will never stop talking about tennis. We're over tennis now.
Yeah,
we talked about NASCAR for a little bit.
Okay, let's Jenny go ahead.
Let Jenny from the block. Let Jenny from the block finish.
Thanks. Like this. All right, this went on a little too long, but again on the women's, like I said, you got Iga Swiatek, who's fairly new, but she's been pretty consistent. Simona Halep, Iga Swiatek, and a few other Coco Gauff. So we'll see. Simona Halep actually, she's kind of fighting some charges that she used some illegal, drugs as far as as far as sports.
Right.
So, but we'll see what how that turns out. So there's some players that are hopefully going to be consistent over the years, and we'll maybe have like a top 3 in the women's game. That we'll just see kind of over and over again. That's kind of nice. So anyway, next tournament up is the French Open. So there'll be a lot of warm-up tournaments until then. So
which is played on clay. So hopefully
Nadal.
I knew that, by the way. I knew that.
All right,
sure
nice.
you did.
All right, so hopefully
we remember.
Jenny, you can stay on for the Eagles because you are an Eagles fan. Aguna, the Eagles are going to where?
To the Super Bowl. They're going to the big game. Big game.
Oh my God.
Come on now. Come on with it.
But he's going to
This
flush
is
the
like
toilet
this is like
now.
awesome sauce going on around here. Can you believe it, Todd? Can you believe it? High five, Todd, right there through the screen.
All right.
Talking about.
Well, I said from the very beginning, if you can recall, I said if the Eagles keep playing like they're playing,
Right, here we go.
they're going to take it all the way to the World Series, and here we are.
Thank you, Black Jesus. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Sure.
What did you call
You will
him?
have hair of
Black
wool.
Jesus.
Hey, so look,
It's not
it is a
wool.
beautiful.
To be clear, this is not wool.
It's not wool.
This is good hair.
What's that? What is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's from,
fine. It was the
it's from, it's from
cashmere.
the barber shop. It's from
Cashmere.
it's swept
All
from
right,
the floor.
come on. We're running out of time. Come on. Let's talk about how the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl and the Buffalo Bills did not.
Well,
First of
I'm
all-
not gonna kick a man while he's down.
First of all, the
I'm not
Eagles
gonna
played
kick a man while
a
he's
No,
down.
he
fifth-string
was
quarterback. The
What?
Eagles played a fifth-string quarterback, so y'all shouldn't
You
be
sound a little bitter.
hard
I
about it.
wasn't gonna give you this smoke, Chris. I suggest you just chill out. I
Hey,
suggest you just say
I've
congratulations.
been,
and move on.
I've been watching football for 40 years.
Smoke, Chris. Because
I didn't even know Josh
I
Johnson
wish
didn't
Josh
play football
Allen-
anymore.
I wish Josh Allen the best of luck in the flag football tournament he's going to play in.
Oh.
Right? 'Cause he's not going to be in the Super Bowl. He's gonna be in the Pro Bowl.
Y'all are
Pull a
gonna
lot of
lose that
flags
game.
this weekend. All right,
When
chill out, Bills Mafia. You're breaking too many tables, and it hurts your brain. All right.
Kansas City said they have
Now it's
fried chicken
all
for Sunday.
about. Look, stop it.
Let's see if he's
All
retired.
right. Look,
Yeah.
one of the things I knew going into this season, my expectation was just very simple. Can we win 2 more games? We were 9-8 last year. If we could just get to 11-6, possibly 12-5, win the division, maybe win a playoff game, I'm good. Not only did we do that, we won 14 games, won several playoff games, and we're in the Super Bowl, far exceeding expectations, right? But now that you're in the big game, now that you're there, you got to close it out, especially considering the field that we're playing in right now. The NFC is not the strongest as it was in the past, and now you see what's going on the AFC side.
I don't believe it.
They just basically beat each other up. They beat each other down, and now
I
you
don't believe
have
it.
a Kansas City team in there that's maybe not full strength, but doesn't have Tyreek Hill and some of those pieces. But let's talk about the Eagles' journey to this point, though. I mean, you have Sirianni. Because look, think about Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman for a minute. General manager and president, right? He hit gold twice. 2 back-to-back coaches in their second year have taken this team to the Super Bowl. Sirianni in his second year in the league. You got Jalen Hurts, who is a second-round draft pick, leading the team to the Super Bowl. You have Gannon, Stitchen, 2 second-year coaches, offense coordinator, defensive coordinator, just bringing these guys along. And it's a beautiful thing. And they're fairly healthy. They're fairly, they're poised. They're humble. Jalen Hurts is humble. There were a lot of question marks about him going into the offseason about having a noodle arm and not being able to throw and read defenses and all those things. Even though he played well at Alabama, he played well at Oklahoma. So the season for the Eagles has been, I wouldn't even say a Cinderella story. It's been more about the team. It's been more about a bunch of men coming together and actually believing in themselves. Because I will tell you right now, myself included, nobody thought they would be where they are right now, going on a potentially, being able to win their second Super Bowl in franchise history. So it's a great thing. I did not go to the game because I was scared. I'm not going to lie. Okay. I was scared because I knew
I was disappointed.
Set up. Things have to happen for a reason. So I stayed away.
Yeah.
I stayed away.
Because you're bad luck.
My Eagles bar down here in Arlington. Shout out to Renegade and the DC Eagles Wings Nest. But yeah, we got it done. It was a beautiful game. I know Chris is going to hate and say, it's a 4th-string quarterback. Listen, the reason why they lost, first thing, San Francisco was very much overrated. 10-game winning streak, right?
No, they weren't.
No, they're not.
Defense.
No, they're not.
When they finished, they were overrated because, again, he was Mr. Irrelevant. Right? He was a 3rd-string quarterback, right? He hadn't played a game on this side of the Mississippi
We
the
know.
last 2 months, right? He didn't face a defense I mean, you saw what Dallas did, and Dallas has a mediocre defense, so he didn't face a really strong.
No, they're not. Dallas has a good defense.
In the last couple of months.
Dallas has a good defense.
You saw where the Raiders took them to overtime. The toughest opponent they played was probably Seattle on the road in Seattle, and Seattle's not a very strong team. So what happened is you have Mr. Irrelevant coming into Philadelphia in front of you.
And he got hurt in the first quarter.
Now I wonder why. Why is that?
Because they hit his arm. They hit his arm.
Who hit his arm?
A defensive guy hit his
That's why
arm.
I know the Chronicles of Riddick hit his arm.
He got knocked out. Aguna, let me say this, Aguna. Who was better than the NFC East? Nobody was better than the NFC East. That's where you're flawed. You said the AFC was the best. You said the AFC was the best. The NFC East put in three teams in the playoffs, and the Skins were that far from making it into the playoffs. The NFC East was solid this year. That helps the Eagles because we were all good. All of us were good. Now, who did they have? Kansas City going against Denver, going against the Chargers, going against whatever.
I think there's a point in what you're trying to make somewhere, Stephen. But
yeah, there is a point that you were in. The NFC East was solid. They usually call us the NFC least. But we were solid this year. We all had a winning record.
The analysts never gave us credit for being a strong division. They said we had a weak schedule.
But this year we proved we were a strong division. It doesn't matter what the analysts said. We proved we were strong.
I'm talking about the game, Stephen. I don't care about the division. All right, I'm talking about the situation.
I know, because you can't give anybody else props. You can't give no props to nobody else.
Do you think if Brock Purdy had played the whole game?
Absolutely, we would have won.
Oh my God!
So let me tell you something. Okay, let me ask you something, Chris. Let's go with this. I'm gonna unbake. Let me unbake Chris's argument right here. So you're saying that Mr. Irrelevant, who hadn't played a game against a top 10 defense and hadn't come to this side of the Mississippi and hadn't played a strong road team, hadn't been on the road, you're saying all of a sudden he's just this perennial Tom Brady guy that's going to come in here.
No, if he hadn't got hurt, it could have went the other way. That's what Chris is saying, and I agree.
But here's where you're.
How about if they didn't give the Eagles a first down? How about if they didn't? How about if the officials didn't give you a first down? How about the Eagles? If the officials gave y'all the first down when the man didn't catch the ball, and then it turned into a touchdown? He didn't catch the ball. How come nobody could see that? How come nobody could see that?
It was 24-7 versus 31-7.
Who was Philadelphia's backup?
No, it was the first 7 points.
Okay,
it was the first 7 points you scored.
Touchdown off the board.
The first 7 points you scored was illegitimate.
Stephen, you're talking in circles. Shut
up.
The
first 7 points you scored, was illegitimate.
Football.
Congratulations to the Philadelphia
Eagles. For you who don't understand the game, you can't sit here and say if Brock Purdy would have played, it would have been different. He got knocked the hell out the game because of the defense he went against. It's not like he hurt himself getting off the bus. He was on the field. He had a chance to make plays. He didn't.
That could happen to any. That could happen to any quarterback at any time. Any quarterback can get hurt.
That's how it's done. You knock him out the game. That's what happened.
If Gardner Minshew had played, would the result have been the same?
That's irrelevant.
Probably not.
That's nonsense. You're saying if Gardner Minshew would have played, Brock Purdy suited up. Brock Purdy was on the field. Brock Purdy took a snap. But Gannon's defense and the scheme that he brought against San Francisco, it's not the Eagles' fault. Look at Carson Wentz against Seattle. He got knocked out the game by Clowney and had a concussion. Nobody was sitting there saying, hey, well, the Eagles would have won. They still would have been like, you know what? Seattle still had a chance, regardless, because their defense was
razor thin margin.
Defense was
the best teams played
out the way the game was supposed to play out. All this
the best teams played, and you came out ahead that day. Any given Sunday, you just be happy you're going to the Super Bowl.
What's the
result?
Just
be happy you're going to the Super Bowl.
Can you tell me exactly? That's the result that we're dealing with right now.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. You guys are sitting there trying to.
We're not. We're not trying to do anything.
Listen to what you're saying, though, Chris. You're saying Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, in the draft. He was irrelevant for.
It doesn't matter if he was irrelevant in the draft. He was relevant.
Exactly.
He won every game he played.
If he was so good,
he won every game he played.
My first point is, if he was good, he'd be in the first round. He's
No,
won 6 games.
that's not
Why?
true.
Because they didn't force him to make the decisions and to have to go up against
He got
defense
hurt.
like he did.
You didn't beat Brock Purdy.
You
He
just
got
said-
hurt on his arm. You
If he
didn't
was
beat
good,
He
him.
didn't beat
Your
Brock
defense
Purdy. He
didn't
got hurt on
defeat
his
him.
arm. What
Your
the hell does
defense
that even
didn't
mean?
beat him. He got an injury
Okay, how did he get the injury?
because somebody hit him on his arm when he threw the ball.
How did the person hit him on the arm?
Because
How
it
did the person hit him on
happens.
the arm?
Because it happens, Laguna. This is
Because
what
he
happens
was
in
sacked.
football.
Are we
Sometimes
was
people
sacked.
get hurt.
Steven,
He got
it's football.
sacked,
He was
Steven.
Because
sacked.
sometimes people get hurt. Laguna, you're being
He
ridiculous.
got sacked because of the defense, Steven.
And you
Because
can't say
nobody,
it's
a
because he was
quarterback
a
never
certified
gets
kicker
sacked,
as
right,
well.
Aguna?
Rocket science.
In your world,
He
Aguna,
got knocked out
nobody
the
ever
game.
gets sacked. Aguna, your point
It's the defense that sacked him.
Let
You're
him
making my point
right,
for me.
and defense sacked him and hurt his arm. This would
And
not
they
have
lose
happened
games
if they were a
because of
better
that.
team. Aguna, you're acting like a 10-year-old.
No, I'm not. I'm just
Who's
going
going
with the
to the
reality.
10-year-old.
Frustrated because you
The
don't have a
reality
point.
is, the
Next.
quarterbacks can get hurt by the other team's defense, no matter how good or bad they are.
Steven, I know you're
I'm-
passionate
You're
about
being
what you're trying to
ridiculous,
make,
Aguna.
but you're making my
Aguna,
point
you're
for
being
me.
a silly fan.
No, I'm
Get
not.
Let's
You're
go back
making
and
my
talk
point
about
for me.
Steven,
tennis.
shut your
Todd,
pie hole.
Todd, let's talk about tennis because Aguna's
Don't
lost
get
his mind.
mad. Don't
Aguna's
get
lost
mad.
his mind. Let's
Steven,
spend the
you
rest
can't
of the
get
show.
angry at, like the D tackles in Philadelphia. I mean, you have Sue, you have Lavelle Joseph, you have Hargrave, you have Fletcher Cox. These guys, other than Hargrave, Sue, and Lavelle Joseph, those guys are in the 2010 draft. Same with so these guys, you know, they don't know if they're coming back next year. Of course, Joseph and Sue won't come back. So these are veteran guys that are
And they
playing
won a
probably their
ring.
last game.
They won
in
a
the
ring.
NFL, their
They
career.
won't get it.
So they're gonna. Excuse me, Chris. What
They
was
won't
that?
get it. Kansas
They
City's
won't
going to
get
beat them. No, not a ring. No.
So
They
here's the
won't.
thing, Chris. If you believed in the Buffalo Bills, why should we take your word now? I mean, clearly your football IQ has some question to it.
First of all, you said that
So
Brock
I'm
Purdy
glad
was
that you
bad
said
because he
that,
was
Chris,
a
because
seventh-round
as
pick.
you've proven yourself wrong, and as Steven has proved himself wrong numerous times, I'm glad
I've never proved myself
I
wrong.
welcome
Name it.
it.
Name when I was
because that's
wrong.
the same thing. Come
I haven't
2
been
weeks,
wrong.
we're gonna
When
revisit the
you
conversation.
you were wrong.
I
when
think
you
I think the Eagles defense is very well poised to go up against Kansas City. I think Kansas City, if you watch that Cincinnati game, I think the Eagles defense they're better than Cincinnati's defense. And I think our pass rush, clearly 70 sacks on the year, you know, we get after the quarterback. So at the end of the day, you know, I think it's going to pose a little bit more of a problem for Mahomes than Cincinnati did. And if you look at that, if you look at the weapons that Kansas City has on offense, you know, they don't have these high power receivers. They're going to do a lot of dinking and dunking. I mean, they have a pretty Pacheco, the running back for Kansas City. He's very fast.
Yeah.
But he attacks the outside. He's not going to be like up the middle. And
Can't live.
Mahomes is going to get tested.
McKinnon is going to score a couple times.
Who is McKinnon?
He's the other running back.
Nobody even knows who he is.
He's nicked up too.
Steven.
So here's the other thing with Patrick Mahomes and his ankle. Again, as you watch the Cincinnati game, there wasn't a lot of push up the middle. They didn't really get him off his mark. He gave everything to make that run at the end, and he drew that penalty, that 15-yarder that kind of sealed it at the end. But up until that point, you saw with a high ankle sprain like that, it usually takes several weeks to heal completely. And if you have a nicked up Mahomes going up an Eagles pass rush, and then you don't have this stretch the field type receivers out there, I think that's going to be a formidable matchup to watch. On the other side of the ball, the Eagles offense and the Kansas City defense, Kansas City does not have the same defense as the 49ers. I think the 49ers have one of the best defenses.
The best defense. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's why we put 31 points on them.
Because they lost both of their quarterbacks during the game.
The Kansas City defense is going to run into some problems, especially at corner position, because you got to
They lost two quarterbacks during the game.
They don't play defense.
We're going to have an adult conversation. This little child over here, he's trying to. Okay.
Hey, Guna, let me ask you this, Guna. Let me ask you this, Guna.
And Devontae Smith are going to pose some problems for, you know, the secondary of the Kansas City Chiefs. And then if you look at the linebacker position, that's the other part, is the running game of the Philadelphia Eagles.
What is the name of the stadium?
Account for Jalen Hurts.
Aguna, what is the name of the stadium?
Your pie hole.
No, it's not.
Lincoln.
It's State
At the
Farm
end of the day, you're gonna have
Stadium.
to count. If you saw the 49ers, you saw
What
Warner and
Stacy.
difference does that
Greenlaw.
make?
Warner and Greenlaw
They're
are
playing
both
at
two of the
State Farm
premier.
Stadium.
Okay.
You're only hurting
That's
the listeners.
Patrick Mahomes.
You're only hurting
Patrick
the
Mahomes does all of their
So
commercials.
you have Greenlaw.
They want
and
Patrick
Greenlaw
Mahomes
and
to
Warner.
win.
There you
Why?
Come on.
Kansas
Like,
City's
Hey,
going to win.
Stacy,
What the hell, man?
Stacy,
What
what's happening here?
Yeah.
Kansas City's
Greenlaw
going to
and
win.
Warner are two of the best linebackers in the league. And you
30
saw they were
minutes
neutralized by
without
the read option,
uninterrupted.
right? So
30
if you look at
minutes
Kansas
without
City's linebacking core, they're going to have to make some decisions when it comes to Jalen Hurts. So it's going to be an interesting matchup to see.
What a
Now, I
waste.
will say this: typically Andy Reid comes prepared, right? So he's going to have
Kansas
his
City's going to win.
I'll lay it
Chris
out.
is right.
But I don't think it's going to. You still got to play the game on the field. So as much respect I have for Andy Reid, I don't think people should underestimate the Philadelphia Eagles defense.
If it comes down
I
to
don't
coaching, Kansas City will win. If it comes down to talent, Philadelphia's got a better chance.
Okay.
I
Thank
think
you.
the
So
only
how many
thing
times
that-
has Andy Reid won championship games?
Twice.
Twice.
Yes.
Which ones?
Twice
I
with
only
Kansas
counted
City?
one.
Kansas City, and he went to Super Bowl with Philadelphia.
He
But
went
he
to the
didn't
Super
win. He
Bowl.
said
He
how
didn't
many
win.
did
He
he
only
win?
has one Super Bowl. So the point being is a lot of times Andy Reid overcoaches himself in the big games. And then we're not even talking about AFC, NFC championship matchups. Right.
Okay. Got
So granted, he is a Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame coach. No
Yeah.
doubt about it.
you.
But at the end of the day, these guys got to play the game, man. And so,
That's right.
you
And
know,
the
I've
Eagles-
seen Andy Reid get out coached a lot in
Well,
my tenure. And so this is it's going to be no exception here. He's got to, at the end of the day, they got to make plays out there.
I think the
And if his
Eagles
quarterback isn't
will
100%,
win.
it's going to be hard.
I think the Eagles will win. Only thing they probably need is a few forwards and maybe a center. And I think they'll have it in the
They've
bag.
got the best center in the
I
league.
mean, every time I count the Eagles out, they usually surprise me. So all this batter about this and that, I mean, hey, these guys have been overcoming adversity all year, and they have a lot to prove. And if you look at Sue and Lavelle Joseph, Sue in particular, he's
wants
a
to win.
nasty D tackle player. He's the kind of guy that's going to get in there. And he said he wants 2 rings for his twins, right? So that's the kind of guy. I mean, those nasty D tackles that are hungry for it, that will do what it takes, that can smell the champions, they can smell. Look at Aaron Donald last year. These guys want it, man. And I don't see that type of hunger on the other side of the ball in Kansas City.
I don't know
I'm
if you
saying,
can
they gotta
go
play
just
the game.
because he said he wants a ring. Steven been saying he wants a ring from Keith for I don't know how long.
Okay,
So-
they've been on their knees for a while. They've been on their knees on this show for a while.
Okay, thank
so
you.
I'm
We're going to
surprised they
move
ain't popped out
on.
yet.
We're going to move on. Thank you. I predict the Eagles will win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I hope they win too. I'm sorry, I kind of stepped away.
Sorry,
'Cause-
Jen.
yeah, that's okay. I was really bored or whatever. So
So was
I
I.
Bored.
I'm just,
I mean, you probably didn't hear
I heard her flush
Steven.
the toilet.
yeah,
Just
no, I'm
say,
just
just say
playing.
vaccine. I should
Right,
have
I
just
was-
yelled out Dr. Fauci or something. And Steven would
Okay,
have went
no,
on.
I was not bored. I just want to say I was not
Dr.
bored. I love
Fauci's
the
your
Eagles.
Jesus.
See?
I love the Eagles, and I hope we do win. All right.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. Good
There are a
luck.
bunch
Yeah.
of haters
So-
on here, though. Bring
Good
all
luck,
that.
good
The
luck.
I love that
CNN.com
energy.
article. The CNN.com article says the U.S. Food and Drug Administration on Thursday halted the emergency use authorization of Evusheld
Uh-oh.
because it does not appear to protect against COVID-19 from viral variants currently circulating in the United States. It is a monoclonal antibody therapy used to prevent COVID-19 and immunocompromised people who are less likely to generate an immune response from COVID-19 vaccine. And what makes it so crazy to me is that the Republicans, and let me see, I can change that. The Republicans have, Keith, what does that mean to end? And I
This
think I heard
emergency
somebody's background.
declaration.
What does that mean to end the
You're on mute, Keith.
proclamation of a pandemic to
You
end
gotta keep on
COVID-19
mute,
public
Tracy.
health as a public health emergency?
Mhm.
Keith?
He's on mute.
Help him. He's on mute.
To
You
end
gotta
it
help
as
him.
an emergency simply says that the federal government will no longer be able to tyrannize over the rest of us. And also the states, hopefully, not tyrannize over us and cause us to lock down again and do all these other things that we've been doing the first time around.
No, we haven't been locked down in years.
I don't see how that. I really don't see. I mean, it's not going to.
I was hoping for an educated conversation. Clearly,
because the president Biden is not going to sign anything before what he wants, before his agenda. And he changed the date twice. He said once he said the 11th, and then he said another date. So,
but what does that date do? What does that really do?
It doesn't do anything, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see why.
Well, it guarantees access to certain funds,
following the science,
and things like that.
Right. That's what I was getting to.
It's a symbolic gesture for nothing. It was going to expire in May anyway. To do it early, just
the funds are going anyway. They're putting money into it anyway. They have other ways of getting funds. So the funds.
So you agree it's just a gesture? It's not really doing anything.
Yeah, it's not really.
So why do it?
Well, because Republicans feel they need to do something to contradict this president, make it look like they're fighting against him. So I think
that's their job. Do their job. That's not there. Who cares about? I mean, if there are funds available because it was a public emergency, it was, and you see.
Yeah, but the people saw what
let the funds be available. No one's making you wear a mask. No one's making you take a vaccine. But if those people who want access to that care should get it.
Suspended all of our rights. It's suspended.
None of your rights have been suspended.
Our rights.
Can you go outside your house right now? Can you go outside your house right now?
Didn't keep mine, and we should have kept.
Can you go outside your house without a mask?
Wearing masks? So all of those things were, a part of it. This emergency, they used emergency power.
So if you go outside your house right now, you'll get arrested for not wearing a mask.
No.
Okay, now I want to move on because
I don't understand what rights
in the
or
circle.
what tyranny or
because you don't honor those rights.
Don't
respect.
Okay, Aguna, you can't do that because this goes nowhere slow.
So it's a symbolic gesture that they said they were going to do because they're playing for the cheap seats. Okay. So what? You pass the legislation, it's going to be dead on arrival in the Senate.
Yeah.
The Biden administration said it was going away anyway in May.
Yeah, I agree.
What? Come on.
I agree.
There's other things that are more important.
Go ahead, Cousin Todd. You had something to say, obviously.
I agree with you on that.
I just didn't want Aguna to get caught up into that jerk.
I think it's very important for our viewers to understand, what's the difference between rhetoric and reality is. Right, so I wanted Keith to explain himself and give himself enough rope to choke himself, which is exactly what he does.
Okay, all right,
and that's important for our viewers to hear.
Okay,
because this is not reasonable right here.
You are
certain people who want to get vaccinated, who want access to the care under the emergency part, won't have it now.
A facade.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to without this kind of back and forth.
But it doesn't.
But it's important for them to hear that because that's the opposition that they're listening to.
Right. No, they're listening.
He could have had an opportunity to say it, make an in-depth point, and he chose not to.
No, that will never happen. Okay, now let me get this in.
Oh, go ahead.
Good Lord.
Good Lord.
People who can't afford this will have to go without it now.
No, you talk over
This is what the Democrats didn't want. That's why they put that date off. They were following the science. And so for the Republicans, and this is what
they never follow the science.
This is what Republicans do. They vote against their own interest. Like a lot of these people can't afford this vaccine. It was free. So that's why they were getting it. Now you will be charged for it, thanks to the Republicans. You see?
Yeah, but that's not against their own interest, though, Todd. Their interest is to make a point and to do
no.
I got you politics.
Poor people like Keith and Stephen can't afford it. Luckily, Keith has insurance, but if you don't have insurance,
they don't want it. That's the thing. Keith and Stephen, they
Keith
don't
wanted it. Keith got it. Keith pretended like it was mandatory that he get it, and it wasn't. He got it because he wanted to get it.
But it's interesting because as you can see, they're more interested in doing "I got you" politics. Keith is like tyranny and using all these phrases. At the end of the day, if you want to get access to care, you had it under this emergency act, like you were talking about. By taking that away, what does it really do? Nothing, because it's dead on arrival in the Senate. So it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors.
Okay, thank you. Todd,
You have very poor handwriting.
Talking about the horrible, horrible, horrible death of Tyree Nichols.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh, yes. These 5 police officers, and here we go again with the traffic stop. And they say he was reckless driving, though there's no proof of that. And to be pulled out of your car and thrown to the ground and then beat, you wouldn't do that to a dog. And I don't care if these people were black or white or in between. You can't do that. So I want these murderers in jail. Now, what happens is they operate really quickly now. And they were fired almost immediately.
They should have been.
And charged almost immediately. But I've never seen that done before. Have you? I always see them when they say, well, we're going to do an internal investigation. It may take us 6 months to a year. And I knew that was nonsense when they used to do that when they were white cops doing all the beating and killing. But now all of a sudden they jump to it. And in a couple of weeks, they're fired. And a couple of weeks later, you're charged with murder. So I just want this to be the standard now. I don't want this to be these people to just be the scapegoats. This should be the standard. It should be swift, and everybody should want that. Just be fair. If the police were fair and they didn't do anything wrong, wonderful. But let's keep it fair. When you see cops doing this, you don't want these people on your police force.
So, Stephen, I have to ask you, this is horrible. If you see, these are the 5 Memphis police officers indicted, and for them to have beat that man to death.
Listen, you don't aggravate the cops, and that's what he did. Did the cops go too far? Should all of these cops go to the firing squad? Yes. Were they awful to this individual? Yes. But this individual brought it upon himself as well because he would not comply. When the cops say get on the ground, don't get on your knees and look at the cops and say, what do you want me to do? No, you get on the ground, you put your face on the ground, you put your hands behind your back, and this is how you live to another day. You put your hands behind your back, Todd. This is where he made a mistake. And did they beat him to death? Yes, they beat him. He died 3 days later. It's wrong. But you have to do what the cops say. When the cops tell you to get on the ground, get on the ground.
Okay, Chris, I could not watch this video. Just seeing the beginning of it was just so horrendous. And to hear him, just like George Floyd did, call out for his mother.
Yeah.
Well, before he did that,
Stacey, his mother.
You have to correct the nonsense. Stephen did not watch the video.
I saw the video.
Not on the ground. He complied. He asked,
did not.
What did I do?
The only thing I wish he hadn't done was ran away from the cops. That's the only thing I wish he hadn't done.
Right. You cannot run away from the cops. You're asking
he was getting beat.
Go ahead, Chris.
You're asking for trouble to run away from the cops. Good or bad, either you're right or they're wrong, or whoever's right or wrong, you still shouldn't run away from cops. Because
so stand there and get
a butt beating is better than being beat to death, Todd.
How do you know they weren't going to beat him to death before he ran? He thought he was going to be beat to death.
Who has ever ran from the cops and turned out for a good situation? I'm not saying the cops were right. I'm not saying that at all. But you never run from the cops, and it never ends up good for the person.
Just lay there and get beat to death.
Okay, let me get Keith. Keith, this was horrendous. You're on mute, Keith. This was horrendous. This man did not deserve to be beaten to death. He did not deserve to be beaten to death. It's horrendous. This should not be going on in the United States, Keith. What did you think?
Well, from my professional point of view, as a use of force instructor, I would say that they were wrong in the way they used force.
Sure,
Not
they killed him.
the point that they beat him to death, but the point that they started out in restraining him. Because I saw the video, and their restraint was very poor, very unprofessional, the way they tried to get his arm behind his back. Yes, it looked like he resisted, but that's because they did not put him in the proper hold that they could have held him. And also they picked him up, and then one officer punched him in the face, sucker punched him while he was standing there with the other cops holding his arms. So that was a imminent threat to him. Professionally, you could say that, well, the cops, he felt that they were an imminent threat to his life. So he took off and ran. That was the wrong thing to do. I agree. But
why was that wrong?
Off and ran. Well, you don't take off and run. You don't
So
do
what
that.
do you do?
If you take off and run, Todd, the police think you have something.
Okay, what do you do? Tell me what you do.
All right, so let me get a Guna in here. You can't talk the whole show, Todd. Let me get a Guna in here.
People are coming up with crazy stuff. Tell me, what should he do?
Aguna, they talk about these type of Aguna. They talk about these type of squads that different police departments have, and I guess they combat different types of crime. And they said this was a specific squad that, after this happened, was disbanded. They got rid of it altogether. Yeah, but even so, for these men to beat another man like that, and they knew they had those cameras on them. Why do it?
Yeah, I mean, part of this, it is definitely a lack of training and restraint on the side of law enforcement. If you look at some of the tenure of these cops that were involved on the squad, there wasn't a supervisor present, right? So part of it is, yeah, he shouldn't have ran, but at the same time, one of the things that they are taught in their training is how to de-escalate the situation once the threat is neutralized, right? So what's happening in the video, as you can see, the adrenaline's going, and even though they're trying to neutralize the threat, according to the officers, they're giving multiple commands, conflicting commands. Yep. Nobody was really in charge. So it is kind of a derelict of duty on their part. Now, as private citizens, even though you're supposed to comply with the police, you still have certain rights, right? So if they're stopping you and they don't necessarily give a probable cause and those type of things, you have the right to ask, why did you stop me? If they also have the right to ask for ID and things like that. There's certain things, it's depending on, of course, the state. So compliance is key, but also restraint on the side of, because remember, it was the officers that are trained, not the civilian, right? And so depending on why they stopped, and that's why it's very important to understand the protocol when they stopped them to begin with, because he's actually in his rights to run. He's actually within his rights to run.
Honestly,
they didn't stop him. Let me finish, Stacey. Let me finish. Can I finish?
Make it quick. You can't talk the whole show.
I mean, if they stop him without probable cause and they don't go through their proper protocols, he's just a private. I mean, if I'm walking out in front of my house and the police can't just stop me for no reason, right? I can ask them, okay, why are you stopping me?
He's dead.
The thing is, unless there's probable cause in the job of laying out and reacting, and I've talked to friends in law enforcement, they talk about not the public perception versus the reality. And yeah, you got to get out in front of the story. You got to do an internal investigation. These cops, it's a union state.
And it can be quick.
For her to get prosecution and have them fired and arrested in that amount of time, they must have had a very good case to do so, because there have been situations
watched the video
and they get leave of absence. They don't get charged. It's unprecedented for officers to get charged like that the way they did in the time that they did.
Well, the chief of police said that she doesn't even know why they pulled the guy over.
Because
that's the point. That's the original point. Right. If they don't know why they pulled him over, he's within his rights to leave the scene.
Well, he couldn't leave
as a
the
citizen,
scene.
you have.
That's never going to go well. Leaving the scene and running away from cops is never, ever, ever going to go well. Never.
But that's why they got charged with kidnapping. Now we're talking about.
You're right.
We're talking again.
Yeah,
if they had the rights to restrain him, they didn't charge with kidnapping. They had no rights to
would rather be alive. You're talking all after the fact. I'm talking about what's going to happen to not happen for this not to happen again. Look at George Floyd. We said, what do we have to do where it won't happen again?
What you do is you don't cut funding for the police. Because when you cut
I didn't say
funding,
anything about funding for the
talking
police.
this is what happens when you cut funding from the police because
No
they can't
funding was
train
cut,
people
ding
properly.
dong.
They
You're
can't.
crazy.
Nobody wants to be a
Has
policeman,
nothing to do
and
with
they've
funding.
relaxed.
Funding
They've
is cut
relaxed
by
a
the
lot
police
of the
all the time.
everything
Yeah.
that you have to be a
It's
cop.
not up to
They
you,
have
Stephen, to
relaxed
determine funding for
everything.
the police. It's up to that community.
They didn't
That
relax
I agree with
anything.
No.
the fact that those
No,
guys
that
are not trained
became
very
in
well.
vogue to cut funding for the cops.
That's
When you
up
do
to
that,
that community.
you
It's
cut
not up to
training
you, me, or
and the
anybody else.
cops
It's
that
up
you
to that
get.
community.
You cut this. If you cut the standards for the cops you get, you're going to get thugs.
Okay, thank you. We got to move on. We got to move on.
That's for
Sorry.
that
If they are
community
thugs,
determine and
this
engage.
one of
We
the
gotta move
cops
on.
worked in a jailhouse and he got prosecuted for beating somebody up. But they brought him into the police force because nobody wants to be a cop because the cops have been so
No,
demeaned.
because the culture of that
No,
police
because you don't
department
understand what you're
doesn't
talking
vet
about.
people properly. It has nothing to
So
do with
if you
this.
look at this
It
article,
does. They relaxed the standards.
Right
right,
on,
if you look at
Steve.
this
They didn't
article,
relax the
I've
standards.
got-
It's just a matter of, hey,
Right.
if
They
you're gonna
relaxed the
allow
standards
somebody like
because
that,
nobody
it's
wants to be a
cultural
cop
in the police
anymore.
department.
excuse me, this first on CNN article by Jamie Gangle, Jeremy Erb, Elizabeth Stewart, updated 6:26 p.m. Thursday, January 26th. The National Archives asked former presidents and vice presidents to check for classified and presidential documents. So obviously, Keith, this is something that goes on with presidents and vice presidents. It must be someone packs up all their things and just packs everything together and they throw it in a box and they move it. And sometimes the presidents and vice presidents don't even know if it's there. So why condemn President Biden when it's happened to every president and vice president in the last 40 years?
Well, the only reason they're even dealing with this is because they picked on President Trump, just picked on who he is. This whole thing should not even be
he's such a victim.
They've been doing this since, I don't know how long they've been doing this, since we've had presidents, maybe. I don't know. But look at all the presidents we've had on down the line. I mean, how many of them have done the same thing? But now all of a sudden, Trump, just because in their effort to persecute Trump, they have to do this. And so now another precedent has been set. But
Did they all cooperate? Did they all cooperate?
Cousin Todd, what is the difference? Why, now we're finding out that President Biden cooperated with the Justice Department and FBI, and he allowed them to search his home today in the Rehoboth Beach, Delaware area, and found out that there was no classified documents in his home. So, excuse me. Basically, this happens to all the presidents and vice presidents. So why were they making a big deal over Biden?
Well,
or Trump.
What happened was, I think they should tighten up the rules about classified documents. I think it's too lackadaisical when you could just take it to your home or wherever and not bring it back. So the difference between Trump and Biden is Trump knew he had classified documents and they were begging him for over a year to give them back.
Not true. That's a lie.
And so then
that is true.
What happened?
That is not true.
Because
they worked with him. Trump worked with him.
Go ahead,
with
Todd. Stephen, let Todd talk.
They came to Trump's compound. They came to his compound and they said, just put it under.
Thank you.
Okay. So now
zip it.
He sent back some classified documents. Now, the FBI said he's got more because somebody told on him. He's got more classified documents, and his lawyer said, no, we gave you everything we had. No more classified documents. So they kept begging him. So after a year and a half of begging, the police, because he did not comply with a subpoena, so that's when the FBI raided his house and found the rest of the classified documents. That's what happened. Joe Biden did not do what Trump did. He complied. And so that's why his house wasn't raided. The FBI did go to his house and search it, but it's a difference between searching your house and raiding your house. There's a difference.
Okay.
Stephen
We're
used
gonna-
to be on Nickelodeon
Can I
with
say
handwriting
something?
like that.
Take over Tyree. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I
It
just
was
want
like
to say,
Sesame Street.
you know, Todd must have forgotten, or he didn't know that Trump, that previously the FBI had already been to Trump's house. They already knew that he had all of that, and they excused it. They said everything was fine as long as you keep it locked up.
They
So-
did not.
True.
See,
this
first
is that
thing,
Fox
the
News
FBI doesn't have the
nonsense.
authority to do that. They don't
No.
have the authority to say just keep it locked up. You got to
Oh
get
yeah,
certified
just
as a
protect
SCIF.
it.
You got to get certified as
that's
a SCIF in order to. It's certain
They already
protocols
knew.
you have.
Yeah,
If you want to certify a certain room in your property,
They
that's
knew.
to be a SCIF. You had to make sure it
They
doesn't
knew.
have penetration from
They knew.
foreign entities
Outside
that can listen
sources.
in and stuff like
They
that.
knew.
So they can't just, the FBI just can't come down there and say, okay, everything's fine. They don't have the authority to
They
do
knew
that.
he
It's under
had.
the authority of the National Archives to deem what's
They
classified and what's
already
not.
knew he had the documents. They
So what are
already.
you talking about? You're talking about one agency said something that it doesn't have the authority to do. So it sounds like you're lying.
Well, how did the agency even come in the first place to take the stuff if they didn't have the authority?
What are you talking about? Because they
What
were
is-
given the authority by the archives to go do so.
Okay, and they were given the authority to say that it was okay as long as he locked it
No,
up.
they don't have the authority.
No.
You're talking about certifying a SCIF. You can't do that if you're the FBI. They
Same
can't do
authority,
that.
sir. You're wrong.
No,
You're wrong.
I'm absolutely right.
Stay off the dark
proving my
web.
point forward. The FBI can't just come down there. Oh, those are the documents. Okay,
They
everything's
already
fine.
approved of it. Already
No, they
approved.
don't. They don't have the authority to
Yeah.
do that. The FBI is the Federal Bureau
Oh.
of Investigation, not the certifier of classified documents.
They already
It's
approved.
common sense. This is not
No,
rocket
but
science, Keith.
let's move on because he'll never get it, and he's making this
No,
up as he
he's
goes
lying.
along.
So
Yeah,
I just
move
want
on.
our
Okay,
viewers
yeah,
to
I'm
see.
going to move
I
on.
want our viewers to
So,
hear this. So
the
you can see
federal-
the nonsense that he's saying.
Right.
Federal
I
interest
understand.
rate. Aguna, let's start with you today. Look at this Wall Street Journal article written today by Nick Timmeros at February 1st at 6:39 p.m. The Federal Reserve nudged up a short-term interest rates by a 1/4 percentage point and signaled it was on track to do so again at its meeting next month, while officials consider whether and when to pause increases late this spring. The decision today to raise the Fed's benchmark federal funds rate by a 1/4 percentage point followed 6 larger consecutive increases to combat inflation, which hit a 40-year high last year. Officials raised rates by 0.5 point in December and by 0.75 point in November. Aguna, that means they are trying to slow down people's spending. And why did they do that?
Yeah, I mean, inflation is still going high. The problem is you have a record low unemployment, and then you also have, coupled by the fact that the economy is still growing. They're trying to slow it down, and the reason why they're trying to slow it down is very simple. It's because of the inflation, right? But at the end of the day, you have a lot of high-paying jobs in the tech sector and things like that that are driving up the cost of homes and housing in the country. So this is to try to slow down the rate in which banks are lending out money, because early on you can get all kind of credit cards. You can run up your debt so easily, in this country. Now with the interest rate going up, they're trying to slow down borrowing, and that's not even just as an individual. That's institutions borrowing from each other as well. The interesting thing about this is interest rates were so low for so long that we got used to very low interest rates. Very low. I'm talking about all close to there. So we got so spoiled with low interest rates. Now that interest rates are going up to where they were not too long ago. I mean, it's not that they're going up higher than they were. It's going back to where they were like 10, maybe 15 years ago when we got used to, when we weren't used to having low interest rates. Point in fact, my interest rates on my house was 2.9%. Right now,
who gets an interest rate that low?
Yeah, I was ready to say.
I now, but when I got my first house, it was almost 7%. Right now, now that the economy is readjusting, it's right back to around 7-8%, the same level it was when I got my first house.
Do you think it's going to work?
So lower interest rates, it seems like, oh my God, it's gone up so high.
Do you think it's going to work to drive down inflation?
It depends. And the reason why it depends is because this country is very diverse, right? I mean, California has the 7th largest economy in the world. but then you have some
The tax rate is ridiculous in California.
Well, and that's the thing. It's so diverse. So when the Fed steps in to do certain things, it won't necessarily work for everything right away. It takes it's going to be ebbs and flows, right? I mean, case in point, in DC, you're not going to hit a recession. They're going to be jobs all the time. People job hunt all the time. But if you go to other parts of Virginia, maybe in the Panhandle and things like that, where you don't have a lot of high-paying jobs, it's going to be a little bit different. Now, one dynamic that has shifted in this country since the pandemic has been the remote working and teleworking. Yeah. That has caused a dynamic in which people can have high-paying jobs and move to Florida and different places and still maintain a certain standard of living. And actually, it's increasing the standard of living in those areas, which is part of the inflation problem as well. So So to answer your question, Chris, to say, I think it's going to work a little bit in certain areas. You already see it in some of the retail and the grocery stores where prices are stabilizing a little bit. They're still going up, though.
Well, I live in the Panhandle in Virginia, and it's not working here.
Well, it's going to take some time. And see, the problem with Virginia is because we're such a diverse state, most people in the rural areas don't like, investing in the urban areas that are going to really make the money for the rural areas to survive.
It's always Northern Virginia versus everybody else.
Say what?
Okay.
It's always Nova versus everybody else. Northern Virginia versus the rest of the state.
Yeah, sovereign in our own country, and we're not ruled by the Fed. We need to get rid of the Fed. That's not what we need. It's not helping any of us. It never has. It was never meant to help us. It was to make the very rich richer and to make the people that are working day to day poorer. Chris, what part of Virginia do you live in?
Roanoke.
So if you're saying get rid of the Fed, the last time we didn't have a Fed was the Great Depression, right? That's the reason why we have the Fed. Was
the Great Depression wasn't because we didn't have the Fed. It's because we had leadership like Joe Biden that took our country and took it straight to hell. We had a Great Depression in this country because of the leadership in this country. Other countries didn't have a Great Depression. We did because of the Democratic leadership in this country. That's why we had a Great Depression.
I can tell you're not a finance guy.
The Fed didn't pull us out of
That's why we had the Great Depression.
The Fed didn't pull us out of depression. World War II did.
I agree with that because we started spending and other people borrowed, but that was put in place to get out of the Depression. Now, luckily, we had a war.
The Fed is the worst organization in the world. We do not need the Fed. We need.
I just asked you for an alternative. You couldn't give me one.
Just get rid of them. We don't need an alternative. We need to get rid of the Fed. They cannot artificially control our country the way they have done it. What they have done is hurt our country.
Can you tell me what the Fed does?
We need the free.
Yeah, the Fed is a bunch of banks that come together to hurt the average person in our country. It doesn't help us. The Fed doesn't help us. We need to get rid of the Fed. It's not anything to do with our federal government. It's the Fed. It's different banks that are organized together in an evil conglomeration that's this country. We need to get rid of the Fed. We don't need anything in place of them. We need to get rid of them.
Real quick, does someone want to talk about why, just real fast, why we should not get rid of the Fed?
Yeah, tell me why we should get rid of the Fed, Aguna.
Because what?
There's nothing to put in this place right now.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean?
You can't get rid of all the banks who control the money. It's just like when people say
nobody's in charge.
Right.
And then you're going to have
people say we need to switch to electric cars. Well, we can do that, but we can't get rid of the whole gas industry in one day to put electric cars on the road.
The same people want to have electric cars are running the Fed. They're the same kind of people.
No, you're Stephen. When I hear you saying get rid of the Fed, you're basically saying you don't want the dollar to be the reserve currency for the world.
I do want the dollar to be the
yen, currency. Or you rather some other.
The Fed is not going to make sure that happens.
Fed, what's going to hold? I mean, again,
the Fed is.
His parents immigrated from Brazil, and he said he attended Horace Mann School in the Bronx. Well, that they didn't have a record of him, and later they said George Santos obtained a high school equivalency diploma. Then It says in college he lied about. He claims he graduated with a degree in economics and finance from Baruch College in 2010, which suggests he would have made it through a 4-year program in just 2 years if he actually graduated from Horace Mann in 2008. But a Baruch representative told the Times there was no record of Santos being in the class of 2010, nor is there a record of Santos being a star on that school's volleyball team, as he claimed to Nassau County GOP Chair Joseph Cairo. A biography of Santos on the National Republican Congressional Committee states Santos also spent time at New York University, a claim that New York University itself could not corroborate. Later, he told the New York Post that he didn't graduate from any institution of higher learning. Let me say this again. He said later on he did not graduate from any institution of higher learning. Mm. He never worked on Wall Street either. And where did his money come from? Well, when he first ran for Congress, he filed a disclosure showing a salary of $55,000 working as vice president at a business development company called Linkbridge Investors, where he says he introduced investors to hedge fund managers, claiming once that he brought in $1 million in revenue in just 6 months. Even there, he was inflating his value. Newsday reports that the company's founder testified under oath in a 2019 lawsuit that Santos was just a freelancer who sold sponsorships for events and worked on commission. Now, let's look at if you can see his resume. Says he was at Linkbridge. He was a project manager at Goldman Sachs Asset Management. Goldman Sachs Asset Management said that they had closed that division prior to the date he said he was there. He said he was a business development manager in Met Global, at asset manager associate at Citigroup, which all said he was not. There he says he was New York University, MBA, international business, and had a GMAT score of 710. Well, if anyone knows about GMAT scores, they go from about 5. The score ranges from 500 to 800, with 800 being the highest. He said he had a score of 710. He said he went to Baruch College, which there's no record of him, and had a 3.8 GPA in business and finance. But what they did say and found out was at one point, he was a cross-dresser. How does someone like this, Queen? How does someone like this get elected to Congress and still be a working member of Congress, Cousin Todd?
Well, I don't know where he got all that money. He may have gotten that money as Katara dressing in drag. I don't know. People like to see that. So this is a con artist. But this is a typical Republican. And what are the Republicans doing about it? Why was he chosen to put on 2 committees? And what were those committees? One was small business something.
They just wanted to vote.
And yeah, but for Kevin McCarthy to put him on a committee with all of this controversy and all of the lies.
These are the same people who put Herschel Walker in front of national TV and try to get him to win.
Exactly.
Too.
Well, Stephen and Keith are. Wait.
I mean, but the elephant in the room is, who's the Democrat that lost to this dude?
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Who did he beat? How bad was that?
I mean, what?
Wait,
I get
no,
it. He misrepresented himself.
You can't,
I get it. He
right.
misrepresented himself.
So you can't blame the Democrat that ran against him. If this,
of course you can.
No, you cannot. He had a pristine resume.
Nobody looked at nobody verified his resume. The RNC didn't verify his resume.
He needs to call Lee Atwater, rest in peace. He needs to invoke the ghost of Lee Atwater to try to get some mudslinging going on. Let me say this.
For the Republicans to back him and not oust him, it tells you all you need to know about these Republicans.
Okay, let's hear what Stephen and Keith have to say about that.
Wait, just before they come in.
Keep saying wait.
because these people keep jumping in. What I want
We're
to say
out of
is
time.
McCarthy got Ilhan Omar off of a committee to put this boy on.
Okay, Keith.
A lot of symbolic
You can't talk for the whole
gestures
show,
going on.
cousin Todd. Keith.
You
How
want
does
Keith and
George
Stephen to
Santos
talk the
remain in
whole
office?
show?
Well, last I checked, our culture today accepts all of that because the Democrats that have been elected to office
They didn't do
are a
that.
bunch of crappy cheaters anyway, and yet nobody seems to care. So why are they
Do
so?
you like this drag queen?
Huh?
Do
You like
this
drag queen,
Oh,
Todd.
did you hear what I just said? Did you hear what I just said?
No, I did not hear you. We
I'll
want
say
to
it
know if
again.
you like this drag
Listen,
queen and you want him to stay
learn
in
to shut
office.
up and listen
Him
to
or
what I
her? What do you call her?
before you criticize.
Do
I
you
said
go
the
ahead?
culture,
The
American
Republican culture?
No, American.
American culture accepts what you see right there before your eyes.
So
Therefore,
do you
it's
want
not
him,
corrupt.
her to stay in office? Yes or no? Do
Sir,
you approve?
sir, I do not reflect the American culture of today. I reflect
You
the
wanna get
American
painted in the
culture of
corner.
our founding.
Okay,
So
let me
you
ask.
want
Just say the
her
dude should
out?
resign, man.
Let me get Steven here. Steven.
Yeah. I think it was much more egregious. All the stuff that you listed that he did and cross-dresser, I don't care who cross-dresses. I don't judge people like that. And the stuff that he did that he lied about is not cool. I don't like people who lie. I don't appreciate it.
Do
But
you
you know
want
what?
him in office
What did
or
the
out?
Democrat Party do
Don't
to
change the
Elizabeth Warren?
subject. Do you
What
want
did
her
the
in
Democrat?
or out?
You
Todd,
deflecting.
stop.
You're gonna
What
lose
did-
your credibility,
Todd,
Stephen, if
stop.
you deflect.
What did the Democrat Party do to Elizabeth Warren
credibility.
when she claimed to be Native American? They did nothing. But you know, she got so much money because she was a minority, because she was an American
I don't
Indian.
think it's
Ma'am,
She
quite
do
got
the
you
same
so
want
much
this
thing.
money. She
girl
got
to
so much
stay in
prestige.
office or
Okay,
not?
She wouldn't be in office right now.
That's
She wouldn't be in office right now unless she said, "I'm Native American. You want to drink
Okay.
a beer with me?
Bye,
I'll drink a
Felicia.
beer with you."
Stephen went from being here to over
Chris?
here. He lost his credibility.
If this would have been the Democrats, they would have done the same thing that the Republicans are doing and try their best.
I don't think
so
so.
they can
They
have the
would
vote.
not.
I don't
Of
think
course,
so.
they would have.
They made
I
Ilhan Omar
I disagree, Chris.
apologize immediately when
I
she
disagree.
And
said
kick them out
something
of Congress. You believe
negative
that time
about.
to lose the one vote that would tip the balance in the House of
Yes.
No,
Representatives?
I don't because I disagree, Chris, because a lot of times Democrats try to capitulate to radicals, right? So it's like if the Republicans would have raised such a stink about this, they would have been forced to resign. I mean, most people
Okay,
McCarthy doesn't care. McCarthy doesn't care. I think
And
the Democrats would not have allowed this to happen.
McCarthy
Okay,
barely got, he
that's
barely
what
got
it
his
is,
job
though.
anyway.
We're out of time.
Do
McCarthy
you want
just
him
wants to
in
stay
or
safe.
out? Wait a minute. Do you want him in or out? Stephen, do you want this girl in or out?
I don't care. I don't care either way.
Keith,
Because
do
the
you want
Democrats
her
didn't
in
get rid
or
of
out?
I don't
people
care
like
if it's a
Warren.
Democrat.
Just
The
answer the
Democrats
question.
don't do what they.
Okay,
You know what?
okay.
I
moved
don't
on.
care. The
Keith,
only reason you want him
You
out is
should.
because
Keith,
you want the
Are
you want the
you a
numbers.
citizen?
Keith, do you want her in or out?
Out.
Okay.
Out.
See, that's right. Be bold,
What
Stephen.
about you,
Say,
Chris?
I don't care. If he can do the job,
Stop
he can
being
do
a
the
coward,
job.
Stephen.
If he lied, but he
Stop
can do
being a
the
coward.
job. They
He
took him off of
misrepresented
his committees. He doesn't have the power that he had.
Kick
Okay,
him
Small
out.
Chris
business
and
committee?
Lie to
Aguna,
the voters. Are
you
you
want
a
to answer
voter?
Todd's question? I got to
You
move
want
on.
somebody
Todd's trying to
They
representing you
took
hijack
in
him
the
off of
the
his
lie?
committee.
I want him out, Todd.
You want
Okay,
him out.
Get him
Aguna,
out.
you want him in or out? In or out, Aguna?
Out. As an American citizen,
I think
you should want this guy
as an American citizen, for him to lie and deceive the constituents.
What
that
about
voted for
Elizabeth
him-
Warren? Do you
You're not
want
playing
Elizabeth Warren out,
whataboutism.
Todd?
Shut
Yes.
up.
Well,
You're not
They
playing
voted
whataboutism,
wasn't Indian,
Stephen.
Excuse
Stephen.
me.
That's
You're
not
not
the
playing
same thing.
whataboutism, Stephen. Grow up.
Excuse me. Whoever lied to their constituents to get into office, they need to go through another election with their constituents and see if their constituents elect them. Because if you think about it, Marion Barry was smoking crack and he got reelected in Washington, D.C. Council. So it's up to the constituents in the area of whether or not they want people to represent them based on what the truth is about that particular person.
Stacey, I think Stephen's meds are wearing off. You may have to.
I'm an
We're
Indian.
going to do a round
Do you
table.
want the Indian? Do you want Elizabeth Warren out?
I
She's
want,
playing-
yes, and I want her to go through the
Even
same
brush your
process.
hair is coming out.
I want her to go through the
Brush
same
it-
process
there
as
you
I
go.
said.
You wish
everyone
you
else.
had hair, Aguna.
Actually, I don't.
You wish you had hair.
So
It's
we're
too-
doing
I don't
our
want to
round
maintain it.
table.
You
We're doing our round
Oh.
table. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
that mullet stuff. You can
Our
have that
round
mullet
table.
stuff.
Excuse me. We're doing our round table, and I told you that I want to focus from now on, at least for the foreseeable future, on homelessness. We need to stop homelessness. This country is too rich. It's ridiculous for each one of us on here to walk by people and have them homeless, and just to walk by people who are out in the street. It's not right. It's wrong. It is a stain on the America that was built. So I want each person, starting with Keith.
No.
Stephen,
I think you should start with Steven because he looks homeless. He should probably be the one that.
Keith,
Yeah.
and I mean, this is serious. Keith,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Steven,
Yes.
Chris,
I don't care.
Keith, Stephen, Chris, Aguna, and
I don't
Todd.
care.
Go ahead, Keith. On how are we going to eradicate homelessness?
Unfortunately, I think that most of these homeless people, at least the ones I encounter and talk to, because they're right not far from where I live, I think most of them would probably, if you gave them a house or gave them a place to live, they'd still walk out and be out on the street, because that's just the way they want to be. And then a lot of them, you can call it mental illness or you can call it what you want, but they'll end up right back on the street no time soon. So, all you can do is minister to them the word. I believe as a Christian, I must minister to them the word of God, and hopefully that they will turn their lives around through Christ and their belief and their faith. And if they do that, then they can have enough strength spiritually and mentally, then they will be able to straighten their lives out, just like the rest of us, because we all have problems.
Stephen.
Right. Keith, you're exactly right. You can bring them to Jesus. You can try to help them give up whatever it is in their lives that are keeping them on the streets, whatever drugs or alcohol or whatever they're doing in their life that they want to do so much rather than to get their lives together that put them on the street. Then it's not going to change. Of course, Stacy, we want to do stuff to help, and maybe we can put more money into it. But it's hard for this country to put more money to it when we're putting how many billions into Ukraine, how many billions to other countries, how many billions are we putting into our own homeless? You know what it's only going to do? It's going to get worse because we have such an influx of people coming into our southern border right now. Homelessness is going to do nothing but get worse. And what can we do to help it? I have no idea. It's horrible. It's burdensome to all of us. It makes life hard on the people who are homeless and the people who aren't homeless to have to deal with the homeless people.
Okay, thank you.
We need a solution. I don't have it.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
I think out of the 100% of people that are homeless, 30 are just want to be there, and the other 70 had financial problems. And praying to Jesus, I'm sure they've all done it. It's not going to get them out of being homeless. Most of them are there because of financial.
Go ahead, Chris.
So praying to Jesus is not going to get somebody, or ministering to them is not going to make them not homeless again.
But ministering to them and having people come to them and have people from the church help people, that has helped people for centuries. People can help people. That's what it means. Not just pray for them and hope something happens. It's being active and helping people.
Yeah, I mean, this
and if you die on the street,
a major part of this is funding for mentally ill who are just let out on the streets. I know in South Carolina, they've had a huge influx of mentally ill folks, and because if you think about it, this country unemployment is at a very all-time low. So there are jobs available for people who are willing and able to work. Right. In fact, that's why you have the problem with Southern border.
People are coming here
trying to work. Now, I will say this. I've seen a lot of homeless people, around where I am, and they're begging. They have their sign in one hand, Starbucks coffee in the other. They have their dog who has a coat that's more expensive than mine on the dog. So, there is a lot of substance abuse. There's a lot of people taking advantage of your generosity as well. Because I will say, unlike in other countries, if you're homeless, you will not go without a meal in this country. I mean, Taco Bell up the street throws out lots of food in the garbage every night because this is just how wasteful we are. You know, there's food everywhere. There's abundance everywhere in this country. But you have to deal with the mental ill. You have to also get through the fraud, and you also have to get through the substance abuse. Because that's why you should not give homeless people money, because a lot of times it goes towards
You're just taking the spending.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Alcohol, drugs, and things like that.
Thank
because
you.
if they really want something to eat, there's
time.
plenty of places to go get places to eat.
Exactly.
Okay. I don't know about Aguna. Sometimes he listens to Keith and Stephen too much. I give money whenever I can to homeless, and I really don't care what they do with it. I'm hoping that they eat with it. But nevertheless, when
a lot of it goes to drugs.
Good job. Good job, Todd. You're getting them high.
I'm going to move on and keep. This is my round table.
Yeah, you're getting them high. Good job.
With crazy Stephen talking about giving money to different countries, we made a promise, and we're keeping up our end of the bargain. So Ukraine, we're supposed to protect them because we told Ukraine, if you get rid of your nuclear weapons, we will protect you if anybody jumps on you. So now
what does this have to do with homelessness?
Because this crazy person said we can take care of the homeless if we stop giving money to other countries. Now, do you want us to stop giving money to Israel?
Israel doesn't need our money. No, I don't want to give Israel any money. They don't need our money.
Okay.
They take a lot of it.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you.
But
I'm glad
let's make no mistake. The money that we're giving is fueling American industry. You think they're shooting?
But what about the Ukraine? What about Ukraine, Aguna? All we're doing is continuing
our defense contractors are benefiting from that.
To our first responders in our communities, you make our lives livable. To our men and women in the U.S. military for all that you do and sacrificing your lives so that we are free to say whatever we choose on the show. We are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna, go Eagles.
Reality. I just want to be realistic on the show. Is that too much to ask?
The Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the independent thinker.
Stephen,
the independent thinker. Keith, the constitutional conservative.
We're both independent. Go, Keith, go.
Sponsored by Rogaine.
My cousin Chris.
You should use it.
He said, go ahead, Bills.
Bald is beautiful.
Bills that lost and are not
Let's
in
go
the
Buffalo.
Let's see what else. Check us out on Stephanie
Hello.
Stone.
Go Birds. Let's go Birds.
Birds. Go Birds. Go Birds.
Go Birds and go Fauci.
Go Fauci straight to hell. Go to hell,
Fauci. See you next week. Oh, thank you to my cousin Jenny for coming on and talking to us about tennis. Thank you, Jenny.
What does a tiger have to do with America? What is that? Tiger.
He's gonna come through.
I want to know why you all are
That's actually one of my favorite books.
worried about if I'm cold or not. Why are you all